Hello and welcome. This video explains how to mark submissions from other participants in the Ntataise ECD Championship 2020. In the top left corner, there are three lines which indicate the menu. On the menu, you can visit the leaderboard, marking, profile, or you can log out. Click on marking. This loads the welcome page to marking section of the championship. You can read helpful, important instructions, and once you have carefully read them, click on the button, click to review. This starts the process of marking your first submission. The instructions that follow explain that first we will see the question that was asked, then we will see the answer that was submitted, then it will be our job to give a mark. We can add a helpful comment or encouragement, and then if there was more than one question, then we repeat this process. And remember to always mark fairly and honestly. If you mark accurately, then you will receive bonus points in the championship. Click on the next button in the bottom corner. Okay, so this submission, which we are now going to mark, is from the challenge called Make Believe Play. The question was, in no more than 200 words, explain why Make Believe Play is important for children's development. 2, how do you help children play Make Believe? Please give some examples. So now we're going to review the answer. We're going to look carefully at the answer that was submitted and then consider what marks to give it. So the answer submitted was, Make Believe Play helps children to learn while having fun. It teaches them to use their imagination and be curious. Here's an example of how I help children play Make Believe. I give them a toy or object and ask them to tell me a story about it. Okay. So now we have to assign a mark. We are ready to mark the challenge, and below we read the following marking criteria and we select between the 4 options provided. Once we select an option, the system will automatically calculate the score that they receive. So our first marking criteria for this answer asks us, is this a clear and accurate description given as to why Make Believe Play is important for children's learning development? Okay. So now I have to consider the answer that was provided and whether the answer provided gave a clear and accurate description of why Make Believe Play is important for children's learning and development. So this answer says that Make Believe Play helps children to learn while having fun. Okay. It teaches them to use their imagination and be curious. Okay. So each time I mark, I have 4 options available to decide how well the answer meets the criteria that's here. So does this answer indicate that Make Believe Play is important for learning? I think the answer emphasizes that there's learning happening while having fun. I see that there's some teaches them to use their imagination and be curious. Okay, so I think on the whole that this answer mostly achieves the criteria that was set, that it's as to why it's important for their learning. I think the answer could have been longer, and there were perhaps more that could have been said. The second criteria that I'm being asked to think about is whether the answer gives clear and appropriate examples are given on how make-believe play can be encouraged and supported. This is for 50 points. Okay, so again, I have 4 options to choose from. So now I can go and look at the answer again and think about this. Did the answer give clear examples on how make-believe play can be encouraged and supported? So I see, here's an example of how I help children. I give them a toy, an object. Okay, so this answer has one example. I think this is a fair answer, a good example. But the question asked for examples, so more than one example, and just one has been given. So I think of my 4 options. I think it's between somewhat achieved and mostly achieved. It's a short answer. So I think I'll choose somewhat achieved. Okay. And then the third criteria for marking was the description provided in 200 words or less? And yes, this was a short answer. So the instructions were followed to make it less than 200 words. So fully achieved, it was less than 200 words. Okay. On the right-hand side, you'll notice that each time you selected one of the 4 options, points were awarded for that criteria. So for this one, 26 points out of 40, and 18 points out of 50, and then for the last one, 10 out of 10, because it was fully achieved. This gives a total score of 54 points for this submission. I'm going to leave a short comment to the user. Well done for your answer. Okay, and now I click in the bottom right, submit. The pop-up says marking is completed. I click OK, and now I go back to the screen that starts the marking process. And if I want to mark another challenge, I can click the to review button again.